Good morning, students. Today we are going to understand the poem Dust of Snow, written by Robert Frost. Who was Robert Frost? Robert Frost was an American poet and winner of many prizes. Famous works include Fire and Ice, Mending Wall, Birches, Out and Out, Nothing Gold Can Stay, and Home Burial. His 1916 poem, The Road Not Taken, is often read at graduation ceremonies across the United States. So, we know that Robert Frost is a famous poet, an American poet, and you must have read many poems written by Robert Frost. Now, let us move on to the poem Dust of Snow. Now, what does this poem explain to us? What does the poet wants to explain through this poem? First of all, we should remember that the poet wants to throw light upon the unimaginable healing power of nature and tiny things. From a bad mood to ill health, there is nothing that can't be cured by nature. In this poem, the poet is experiencing a bad day, as we all do, alright, and he was very sad. He had a gloomy day, but then a sudden movement of the crow that was either sitting on the tree or landed on the tree made the dust of snow fall on him. Now, this falling of the snow on the poet instantly makes him happier. His day gets a lot better. So, through this poem, the poet wants to show the supremacy of the nature. How nature can heal us, how nature can make us happy, how nature can give us positivity. So, as we see in our daily life, the sun rises and then it sets. But the next day it rises again. The same way, we can sometimes face success and sometimes we can face failure. But we should always remember that we still have tomorrow. So let us again come to the poem. Now, through this poem, the poet wants to show that how even small things in nature, which might not look very beautiful to us, which might look very inauspicious to us, that can also bring positivity into our mind. So, this is what we are going to read and understand in this poem. Now, before moving on to the explanation of the poem, let me show you two pictures. One on the left hand side is depicting the poet standing under the hemlock tree, while on the other hand, on the right hand side, we can see the hemlock tree. Now, this hemlock tree, alright, it is an evergreen tree which has white poisonous flowers. So, two symbols that the poet has used here, that is the crow and the hemlock tree, both of them are considered a bad omen. Alright, and we will see in this poem that using these symbols, how does the poet show us that even such things in nature can make us happy. So, moving on to the explanation of the poem, we are going to understand a stanza at a time. This poem is not very lengthy, but is quite meaningful. So, let us first begin with the first stanza of the poem. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So, first of all, the way a crow shook down on me. Shook down, the crow might have landed on the hemlock tree, or the crow might have taken its flight from the hemlock tree, or we can say the crow was shivering on the hemlock tree. We are not aware about this, but what did the crow do? He shook the dust that was on the hemlock tree. Okay, the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. Okay, so as the poet was passing by, all right, we come to know that the poet is moving in a bad mood. He's very sad, he's very gloomy. The reason for this is not given in the poem, but the poet was very sad, and as he was walking by the tree, this poisonous tree, what happened? A crow happens to throw some dust of snow on him. Now, when this dust of snow fell on the poet, alright, what happened? It suddenly changed the mood of the poet. So, we see here, shook on me, shook down on me. So, here me is the poet, that is Robert Frost. So, we see here that two agents of nature, the crow and the hemlock tree, that Robert Frost has used in this poem. What does it signify? They signify the sadness, the gloom, but they are used by the poet to show that even these small things can change the mood of a person. Why? Because when the snow fell on the poet, it helped in bringing a direct contact with nature. Okay, so once again you go back and again read the stanza. Now we are going to move on to the next stanza. Has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Now, what do we mean by rued? Rued is when we feel sad or when we regret something, when we are sorry for something. Alright, so the first stanza has made a plot. Alright, what had happened? The dust of snow had fallen on the poet. Now, what happened after that? When the dust of snow fell on the poet, has given my heart a change of mood. What did the dust of snow do? It changed the mood of the poet. Alright, it gave a new hope. It gave happiness to the heart of the poet. So, we have to remember the falling of the dust of snow, and instantly there was a change of mood. Alright, now we will move on to the next two lines. And saved some part of a day I had rued. Now he is saying had rued. That means in the past he had regretted. The day before the dust of snow fell on him, he was sorry for that day. Okay, and if the dust of snow had not fallen on him, he would have not been happy, he would have been sad, he would have regretted that day. Alright, but what did the dust of snow do? It saved a part of the day. Alright, out of the whole day, a part of the day was saved. Alright, and what was this day? That this is a day after the dust of snow had fallen on him, which had made him happy. Now for the rest of the day he will not be sad. Okay, so the falling of the snow on him lifted his mood. Alright, so though on one hand we see that hemlock tree, which is a poisonous tree, alright, and a crow, which is always taken in a negative reference, alright, but the poet has used them beautifully to portray that inauspicious things can bring joy and happiness too. Okay, we must not take things for granted that something is good or something is bad. Alright, sometimes small things, alright, can help us to change our attitude towards the world. So I hope you have understood this. Now, before we move on to the next part, I want you to go back and just read the lines once again, and then you can start the explanation again if you have any problem. Okay, so we move forward and we are going to talk about the literary devices that have been used in the poem. Now, what is the role of literary devices? I think each and every one of you is aware of that. Literary devices are used by the poets or the writers to give a rhythm, to make their work more interesting. Many literary devices are there in this world which makes a piece of writing beautiful, interesting, and we can use these literary devices in our work too. So when we come to the first literary device, the first literary device used here is alliteration. Now, what is alliteration? I think each and every one of you is aware about that. You must have studied in your 9th class. Alliteration is when the same letter or same sound is used at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. We are talking about in a line. Alright, in a line, if the same letter or same sound is repeated, alright, what does it do? It gives a rhythm to the line. So, the examples of alliteration that has been used in the poem is, for example, has given my heart. Has given my heart. This is the first line of the second stanza. And the same way, the other example is, and saved some part. Again, this is in your second stanza and the third line. So, same letter or same sound is being used in these two lines. Now, the second literary device that has been used here is enjambment. Now, if you see any piece of poetry, you will see that in each line in a stanza, at the end of the line there is a punctuation mark. It can be a comma, it can be a full stop. Alright, but in some poems, alright, the punctuation marks are not used. Alright, a pause is not used. So, when such case appears, alright, maybe in 2 lines, maybe in 3 lines, alright, there is no punctuation mark, then maybe in the 4th line there is a punctuation mark, that is a full stop. So that is known as enjambment. And if you look at the poem, you will find out enjambment has been used throughout the poem. So you can just have a look at your poem and see and mark this literary device. Now, if we come to the third literary device, that is your symbolism. Now, what is symbolism? When we use an object, alright, to symbolize something. It is used as a symbol of something else. For example, here we see crow, we see hemlock tree, and if we see the dust of snow. Now, what does a crow signify? It signifies inauspicious time, ill fortune. Alright, it is connected with that. So, it is acting as a symbol of ill fortune. Same way we see the hemlock tree, it is a poisonous tree. Same way, it is a direct association with death. And if we see snow, snow represents hardship. If we see cold countries, alright, in such countries, during the winter season, after a snowfall, lives become much harder. Life becomes harder than what it is. Okay, so snow represents hardship. Now, what is our next literary device? That is imagery. Now, what is imagery? When the lines written by the poet, it creates images in our mind. We can picturize it, the situation. For example, here in the first stanza, alright, the way the poet has written, we can imagine a hemlock tree We can imagine a crow sitting on it. We can imagine the poet standing under the tree. So we see that throughout this poem, the poet has used imagery to make the poem more beautiful. Alright, so with this we come to the end of the explanation, and I want you to go back and just revise it once again, and afterwards we are going to complete the exercise that is given in the book. Thank you.